right, welcome to another episode of Modern Life. I am Sam, joined today by Stacy.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about, I guess, something a little bit more of a current event than what we usually do. Stacy and I wanted to talk about, I guess, just our experience through 2020 so far and navigating the unemployment life since we both work at a restaurant. That is, luckily now reopened again since we are in California. But we wanted to just kind of talk about everything that's been going on, and especially now with Congress going to recess in the middle of a pandemic. But we're going to just kind of be talking about that whole thing. So before we jump into it, as always, we're going to be doing some modern thoughts, talking about stuff that's on our mind besides the main topic. Stacy, you want to start?
Sure. So there's this new trend in 2020 where women are going on these hikes either by themselves or with a group of women, and they're taking their shirts off and doing topless photos, but they're not doing it where they're exposing themselves. They're doing it with their back away.
Right.
They're back toward the
I've seen
camera.
these. Yes.
And the whole purpose of them is supposed to be for they usually do this after a breakup or a body image issue or
Sure.
whatever. It's basically to claim their independence. It's supposed to feel liberating.
Okay.
I think in my youth, a bunch of women shave their head to pretty much represent the same thing.
Okay.
And I don't know, what's your take on it?
Well, what's
you're
your
a male
take on it? This is
I mean,
not a complete
honestly,
thought.
I think it's amazing. I'm not opposed to something like that as long as you're not forcing your opinions or your experience off on other people. So meaning if there are other people around, yeah, you shouldn't be doing it because, heaven knows there could be a kid or somebody that maybe shouldn't be seeing that.
Okay.
But I mean, if it's really in nature and there's no one else around, I'm all for it. If you want to, I can imagine it feeling very liberating.
So this is a legit trend?
Yeah,
so
it's a
confused.
legit trend. Some it's happening in 7 or 8 different states. Colorado seems to be the biggest one. But toplessness is legal there. So it's not against the law.
So confused.
What are you confused about?
I don't know. I don't have a take on this at all. I mean, just take whatever picture you want. I don't care.
Yeah. I don't know. It just, some people say that it's not, some people would say that it's not something you should be exposing.
What, your back?
No,
Because
just
you don't see the front.
Yeah, I know.
And so, who cares? What?
I don't know. I think it's a cool trend. I just wanted to bring it up.
I just see your shoulder blades. Am I not
but
understanding
there could be other
something
hikers
here?
around or kids in those spots. I don't know. United States, at least United States has a very weird idea of body image and not exposing. I know you're from Germany, so you probably have more of a European view on some of this, but
I mean, no, if I went on a hike out here in beautiful Southern California and there was some guy taking
naked photos of his...
Yeah, I'd be like, no, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, that's... I mean, I guess it's the same...
Is this a legit problem, or is this just a hypothetical problem somebody brought up?
It's not even really a problem. It's just me stating...
What I thought.
To be honest with you, it's me just noticing a trend and debating whether I think it's a cool one or not.
One of these... one of these is going to take a picture on a cliff and accidentally fall off.
I'm sure this has happened, but...
This is terrible.
I didn't look it up.
It seems to happen a few times a year. Taking Instagram and fell off a cliff. My modern thought is Netflix and streaming platforms in general, because I feel as though they have saved the summer in a way, because it's the only way I can get a summer blockbuster right now, right?
Yeah.
And that Jamie Foxx movie just came out on Netflix. Was this just called Power? Project Power? We had the Charlize Theron movie on Netflix where she's being a badass wielding an axe. I forgot the name of that movie. Neither of the movies are that great, but they're fun popcorn summer blockbuster BS. You had Hulu with the Andy Samberg thing that was my summer comedy.
Yeah.
The Palm Springs one. I don't know. I feel with the movie theaters being shut down, the streaming platforms have really kind of stepped up to the plate. No?
Yeah, I agree.
More so than I remember any other year where they've just kind of joined the blockbuster season here.
Well, that's already. I mean, that happened before. They Netflix started putting out
Maybe
like
it's just
big
more memorable because
names.
there's nothing else to watch now.
Well, I
don't
think
know.
that you're now actually like watching the movies that
Yeah.
they were starting to put out, because like even before the before the pandemic, like they were putting out, they were starting to like, Netflix was really starting to hire like some of the bigger names. Some of the bigger names were coming to Netflix because they could have more freedom to do like
Yeah. Well,
stuff
they're
that
throwing
they.
around money like
Yeah,
it's nothing.
yeah.
And you know, Disney's gonna release the Mulan movie they announced a week ago. I mean, I'm liking where this whole streaming thing's going.
Wait, so is there a point?
Is there a point? Yes,
Yeah.
the point is that I love summer blockbuster movies, and it feels like streaming platforms have just really stepped up to the plate here, and
So
they're like,
you're
we don't need movie
basically
theaters.
like giving recognition to something that's occurring at this time,
I'm not
and
giving recognition. I'm just happy they're there.
okay,
I'm just
then yeah.
summer's not the same without some mediocre summer blockbusters. And I'm glad. I don't know, because we had like Top Gun coming out, and now, you know, Fast and Furious got to like all these movies, and it's like, okay, you're spending so much time at home, and then these blockbusters have been released little by little now on the stream platforms. That's my modern thought. I'm just happy about it.
Okay.
Can I not be happy?
Well, I agree with you. I was just, you were concerned about the point that I was trying to make, and I was just
wasn't
stating there.
concerned.
I was just trying to,
I was just trying to get at
acknowledge.
your points.
I was admiring a new trend. Basically, it's
Do
the
you
same
want
thing.
to take one of those pictures?
I
help
don't.
you.
I don't feel the need to
Come on.
feel liberated, because I already feel like I'm confident enough
liberated
in
enough?
myself. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I mean, for women that are coming out of bad situations,
see.
or women that feel like that, something like that. I mean,
I
there
feel
was
like
a
if you're
time
gonna-
in my life where I wanted to shave my head really bad, and I found
It's never
another way
too
to
late.
find liberation. So
I feel like if I'm
this
going to
is
take one of
what's
those topless are they pantsless or just topless?
just topless.
I would need to be like screaming on the top of a cliff.
Well,
while
most of them are.
someone's- Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're like,
Female battle cry.
yeah.
I'm liberated.
I don't know. I think it's cool. I think any way to feel, to feel power and to gain that power within yourself is inspiring. That's all.
Power of the
Same
people,
thing.
man.
Oh God, you're such a butthead. Same thing with your Netflix thing. We're just giving
Just
credit
good
to a
vibes
trend.
all around today on the
Yeah.
Modern Thoughts segment.
Woo!
All right, let's dive into the dark world. We're not gonna get honestly too political because I don't care for that, but we wanted to talk about our experience as, we both work in the restaurant industry here in Los Angeles, and going through the whole, unemployment circus.
Well, when did
and
they shut us down? They shut us down in
a restaurant was shut down, and just the extra 600 benefit, just went away at the beginning of this month. Just wanted to talk about how there's, all the problems with what's going on. I think this really got spurred. We got so angry that nothing has been figured out the last 3 weeks in Congress, and they're like, oh, it's time for summer break, and they're all going to recess. I'm like, wait, no. It's like we're in the middle of a pandemic. You don't get to go to recess. I'm sorry. You just don't. Like, you got to figure something out, no?
I think that you, especially with the benefits ending, the extra benefits ending, and then this whole, I'm going to start off with this whole idea that people don't want to go back to work because they're making too much money on unemployment.
That drives me crazy.
Just want to state that that's not the case for a good 90% of these people. You just have to realize that before the pandemic, we were making, anywhere between $700 to $1,000 a week, depending on a good week and a slow week. And living off of that is how our lives were set up, our bills, everything. And we live in LA. It's not exactly a cheap area to live in. And then you have being told that that you can't work because they're closing restaurants down because it's not safe. And then you have to live off unemployment, which is $450 a week, which is half.
So is not a lot.
It's not a lot of money to live off in LA. Let me tell you, it's less than 50% of what we normally make. Or no, it's 50% pretty much of what we would normally make. Which
on an average week, sure.
Yeah.
I think the point is that when Congress stepped up to the plate and did that extra 600 for everybody, it's a lifesaver for a lot of people, right? It let you kind of ride out the pandemic and just kind of have your normal life. And for a lot of people, it increased what they were making before. Like, it's almost like you got a pay raise for a few months. For us, we crunched the numbers and it just brought us back to kind of where we were before, maybe like a tiny bit more, but it just supplemented our income 100% pre-pandemic. Yeah, that's one of the other reasons we want to do this podcast, is this notion that's being thrown around over and over, that if we continue these unemployment benefits, these extra benefits, that people don't want to go back to work. It's just absolutely idiotic for so many reasons that we're going to dive into. First of all, if you're unemployment and that's your mindset, you would have to be a complete idiot, because I think we all know unemployment
only lasts so long.
It either expires after time period, or you run out of, you only have a certain amount of funds you can draw from for your personal unemployment. So you'd have to be living
for lifetime, not just a year.
You'd have to be living in La La Land to think this is just going to go on forever. The other major problem with it is that, like, you and I, we like going to work. Like, we want to work. We're hard workers. The thing is, at the moment, what's going on in Los Angeles, we're only allowed to be open outside. You cannot be open inside. So yes, we are back at work, but everybody's shifts are cut down, right?
I think that before you go into this, you should explain how unemployment works. So you have to qualify for the whole $450 in benefits. You have to make less than $600.
They count 75% of what you make.
So if I make $600 a week, I make $450. And then on top of that, now you can qualify, like,
I think you'd probably have to make like $1
less, $5.99.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on top of that, you got the $600. So if I went back to work and I worked and I made exactly $5.99, I would take $1, and then I would still qualify for
this. You make like $601.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, really is important during this thing is that you have to understand that we're going back to work, but we're not going back full time, because there's not enough shifts and not enough people going out to eat and not enough tables, because our table situation is cut down by a third.
So the outside is not the main part of your restaurant.
Yeah. So, and even if we live in LA, they might have some places that have huge patios, but most of them have nothing in comparison to what they have inside.
I feel lucky because where we work, we do have a decent sized patio, which is definitely not the case for most restaurants. So we are lucky in so many ways, but without, so you have you have less tables, less business. Then, for example, our restaurants stop because we only have so many tables and they got to turn a profit. There's obviously no more happy hour. It just has to be the regular price menu. The thing is, you still have people coming out to eat that
don't want to spend.
Is that ex happy hour crowd.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there with a drink and appetizer for 2 hours, but they're taking up, one of the 12 available tables you have, which is like every table needs to kind of be, if your restaurant's going to survive, needs to be like max profit, right?
Yeah.
That one person sitting there for 2 hours not spending money, it's taking the table away from maybe somebody else that wants to make a reservation that's like a normal party of 4 wanting to have dinner. So you end up being stuck in this middle ground most of the time, where when the benefit was going the extra 600, where it's either you're making like 450 or you're making 1,000, and there's this weird middle ground that, because the 600 isn't adjusted, right? It's like either you qualify for it or you don't.
Yeah, either you qualify for at least $1 of unemployment or you don't get it. So I either have to make less than half my salary to get the 600, but if I make $1 over, then I don't get it. So I have to live off that 500. So you need to understand that a lot of people, when it first came back, there wasn't enough shifts, but everybody's getting this PPP thing where they want to keep their staff. So they're scheduling everybody 1 or 2 days or 3 days where they can make the amount to just enough to not qualify for unemployment.
So especially when we first came back a couple months ago to the restaurant, you'd have these weeks where, okay, so I can either try to not work as much, maybe give up some of my shifts, something like that, and try to make the unemployment, some of it, and then get that extra 600, and maybe you make $800-900 through that. Or if you worked your 3-4 shifts, we were back full. We were lucky to be brought back like 5 days when we first opened. And you'd work the whole 5 days and there wasn't enough business, and you'd end up making, maybe $650, $700, and that's before taxes. And then you don't qualify for the extra $600. So you're stuck in this shitty middle ground of, not
making
It's either too much or not enough.
Yeah, like trying to live off of 2/3 of what you normally make, which that adds up. That's my entire rent. It can add up to my entire rent for the month. So I think that people just with this, I think a lot of businesses just like took it the wrong way. Like a lot of owners took it like, oh, these people don't want to work. I'm giving them a job. And it's like, no, you want to give us a job where we're not making what we used to make. But we can't qualify to make the other. So there needed to be some adjustment. It's just way more
nuanced than just people don't want to go back to work. It's like, no, I want to work and I wish it was as busy as it was pre-pandemic, but it's just not.
Yeah.
And there's not, they're cutting everyone's shifts down because the patio's only so big. You only need so many people at a restaurant. Obviously, I think in an ideal world, you would have had something where the 600. Okay, so let's say you made too much to qualify for unemployment, but not enough what you made, before March when the pandemic started. So the government's going to give you, instead of the extra 600, extra 200, extra 300. But obviously that would be such a hard program to implement for millions of people. But I think in an ideal world, that's what you would have done, right?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, what the problem is either we work full time and we're punished. We can be punished based on that, or we don't go to work and then we fall into this lump of people that get assumed that they don't want to work. And it's like, no, I have bills to pay. I can't afford to live on half my salary.
Right.
I wish I could, but I can't.
Yeah.
We have 2 children, so we have
the kids.
We have 4 mouths to feed, and a house payment, and a car payment, and numerous other bills. So I mean, we slimmed down, but it's rough.
The other thing that's I think been frustrating for us, and just talking to people in general, is there is this, and still is, I think, this real lack of enforcement of any rules. So LA County, LA City have all these really strict rules, like we have to wear gloves and face shields and face masks and an apron over a uniform, like all this protective equipment.
But when they first announced it, they literally said, a question in the audience asked, like, are you going to have people going around like enforcing these? And they're like, no, we're going to trust people to be responsible. And then
what happened here is we basically got
opened up.
There was a second shutdown, more or less.
Yeah,
right?
Well, basically we opened up and nobody was following the procedures or the protocols. And then everybody got punished, even the ones that were following it, which our restaurant was following it to a T. And there was just this like complete lack of.
They kept making these threats of like, we're going to take people's liquor licenses away. And they kept saying it. And I haven't seen any of it. It's like, okay, well then actually do it. Like if you're serious about this, then do it. Because I've driving down Ventura Boulevard here in LA, like we've seen restaurants seating people inside that aren't supposed to be. We've seen.
Oh, I've talked to guests who have talked about walking into certain restaurants where they're regulars that they've known them forever and they'll let them eat inside. It's just there's no protocol, there's no follow through, and then I see these lack of protocol and follow through and forces us to shut down again. And I'm not even looking at it from my standpoint. I'm looking at it from a standpoint of like, I have several friends or people that I know that are self-employed or they're considered like tattoo artists or hair salon, they're stylists. And which, by the way, I don't know who decided or how it was decided, who was like where dangerous areas are and dangerous areas aren't. But the idea that a salon that has one person working on one person with all the protective gear on that we have to wear at work is less.
Well, it's more dangerous
than a restaurant where they're allowed to eat without their masks on. I can't. That entire idea of like tattoo parlors and hairstylists being in the last group to reopen, just completely
for people that don't know, here in LA, the restaurants seem to have taken. They were pretty much in one of the first phases to reopen compared to tattoo parlors.
We were in the second phase.
And tattoo parlors, hair salons, they were like in the third phase. And then you have the nail places, which they're like in the fourth phase. Like they haven't even been. Yeah. Even when the hair salons were open here, the nail places weren't allowed to open. So I don't always quite understand how I get if, there's barbershops out here where crowded waiting area and there's like 12 people getting their haircut. That can definitely be an issue, but so many salons here are like kind of luxury one-on-one experience, and
there
there's
just
like
needed
no one
to
else
be
around.
Restrictions. I feel like they should have had strict restrictions, but not closing and like not lumping them all together because there's such different environments from like the barber shops that have like or the stylists that have like 5 people working in a room and they're working on 3 people at the same time. It's like, okay, that makes sense to me. But so many of the stylists I know have like their own little room or cubby, or they share a room with like 1 or 2 other people, which you could still do if you put the restrictions that they put on the first time they reopened. And then all of a sudden they like within 2 weeks, because they were closed down again. And they bought all this protective equipment that they were forced to buy. And now again, they're shut down.
Right.
And restaurants are allowed to stay open outside.
Yeah, we have a couple friends that are hairstylists, and that's what they were saying. It's like, okay, they were allowed to reopen. I don't know if people like quite understand how much all this protective equipment costs, all the gloves, right? Buying the disposable face masks, like the prices of those have been jacked up because everyone's buying them. I remember when our restaurant bought all these plexiglass dividers, and I couldn't believe how I had no idea how expensive plexiglass was at the moment. Like, spent thousands of dollars, and I think it's one thing for a restaurant to do it that's like this big full-fledged business, but I feel like so many of these, especially if we're talking about like hairstylists, so many of them they're kind of like this one-person operation.
What are they considered? What's the word? The
independent contractors.
Independent contractors, which also are the ones that we're not able to collect unemployment for
for a while, yeah.
For a while.
Well, the system wasn't set up for it.
Which I understand, but it's just...
But I just felt bad for them because they were allowed to reopen, and literally, 2-3 weeks later, they did the rollbacks. It's like, oh my God, well, okay, so this person had to spend all this money, and now... I mean, they'll use it down the road, I'm sure, but it sucks for the short term. It's just that's money that could have paid rent, right?
And they are now also on the $450 instead of the $1050,
right,
making a third of what they made before, trying to pay the same amount of bills. Sorry, a little frustrated.
And I do, to go on a positive note, I do feel lucky in so many ways to be in California during this, because compared to what I've seen from other governors, and so our governor Gavin Newsom, I'm not going to go into politics and what you think of what he's done, but I think at the very least you can't argue with the fact that he's taken just like a full-on leadership role, and he's constantly doing press briefings, and he's taken charge of the situation, which that's all I really care about.
Yeah,
so many of the other...
I don't even want to go into that as much as just California is very set up in terms of being able to collect. I don't know if it's because we have so many people or it's such a big state, but
you heard about these states where people waited months for unemployment.
And months, and it was like literally we applied for unemployment when it first broke down, and
2 weeks later, right?
It was 3 weeks. It took 3 weeks for us to get our first check, but like no time at all compared to some of these other people that was like 4 months in, and you can't get a phone call through, and you can't this, and it's like, yeah, I don't know about the phone situation because I don't use the phone. I use the internet, but the internet process was so easy. And yes, it's slightly confusing at certain points, but
it's definitely,
overall,
the website's a little bit of a hot mess.
Yeah,
sure.
But I mean, but overall, as long as you were careful and you took the time, or at least asked somebody for help, like you could get it the second that you applied for it.
Yeah.
Which, bless the fact that we have that, because I don't know what we would have done.
California being like a nation state, and we have more money than most states, and maybe that translates into having some of the government systems more set up.
We also have like one of the biggest tech communities.
That's true.
I feel like that might have something to do with it.
I'm sure it's all influences everything.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm very lucky in that sense, but I just feel disheartened by government right now with the fact that they decided that all these people, and I'm even talking about us because, like I said, we're lucky, we're open. At least we have something coming in, but all these people that are down to $450 a week when they used to make double that or even more. Yeah. Like I can't even fathom how ridiculous they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah. And to me, it's not even like a Democrat versus Republican thing.
No, it's a whole thing.
You can point fingers to certain things on both sides. It's like, this can't be like negotiating another relief thing for 3 to 4 weeks, then go into recess.
You mean you don't want to put in the fact that there needs to be a new FBI headquarters into the new coronavirus stimulus package? I think that's really important to decide and negotiate on when there's people that are making a quarter of what they were, and some that aren't even able to get unemployment.
Yeah, that's what's so frustrating, is all the red tape. And it's just, I talked to my mom on the phone the other day. I don't think I told you this yet. One of the first things she said to me, she goes, how does it feel to live in a country that's abandoning you? And I was like, Jesus, like that's deep, because that's kind of what it feels like is happening sometimes.
I mean, I know Republicans are working on a new deal and they're like about to release it, but it's like you're never going to be able to do, I mean, they're never going to be able to communicate through this process if they're not in one room together. And I wish that they had better communication and could put apart the bipartisan lines, but they're not going to be able to. So putting them in a room together where maybe they might be able to get something accomplished, this should have happened before the stimulus package ran out. Like,
but that's
people
another
are in
frustrating
trouble.
thing is there seems to be no talks until it's like something runs out. The second you have one stimulus bill, like you should be working on the next one, because I feel like we have almost another year of this. Like, I don't think this is going anywhere unless miraculously a vaccine pops up. But even that's going to have its issues distributing that. Yeah, it just seems frustrating sometimes. The vibe you get reading the news is some of these politicians think that it's like you're on the back end of this thing and most people are doing fine. And I don't get the vibe that most people are doing fine.
I just feel like it's a huge blame game, and I feel like it's being politicized instead of being addressed. And I get that there's a huge election coming up, and I get that both sides are very powered. But to be honest with you, I don't give a shit about any of that at this current moment. What I care about is my friends and family being able to pay their bills. And I think that we're at a point where you would think that they would be able to put that first. And I feel like they haven't.
People always seem to be so confused about everything that's going on because there's so much noise, right? You have Congress who can't figure out their stuff, and then one day later, you have the White House signing these executive orders. My favorite one being the payroll tax relief thing that he signed?
Yeah, so right now there's a current thing where he just assigned a thing where he said that if the states pay 25%, that the federal will cover the other 75, and that the stimulus relief is 400. And it's an executive order, which to me is a little weird because I didn't think that was really something that he could control, was financial. But
right, well, that's what people are arguing.
But then again, like almost every single state is pretty much like at their wits' end with finances because, they're putting all this money into testing and all this other stuff, and they don't have enough money to cover 25%. So then they changed it, and it was that they'll give you the 300, but then there's you can't qualify, like only certain states can qualify. So as of right now, I said 9 states or 11 states.
I think it was 11.
Okay, so 11 states have qualified, and some of the states need the money really bad, and other states are not even going through that bad of a situation. But
no, but the other one he signed was where
you're talking about the
payroll
employment
taxes.
I'm sorry, I
where
misunderstood.
you're deferring. It was about 6% of the payroll taxes is stuff that goes to Social Security, and I forget the details of the other one. But people realize is that it's the president only has the power to delay when the taxes are due. He can't actually completely defer it. So if people were to take payroll tax deferments out of their paychecks, you would just end up with a really big tax bill next year. And it's like, how does that?
Okay, wait, hold on. Let me explain that a little bit clearer. So normally when you get your paycheck, your company allocates money to pay the taxes that you owe at the end of the year. Okay. And so, you have one, and they take out a certain amount. And what he's trying to do
per paycheck.
Yeah, per paycheck. Yeah. So what he's claiming is that they defer those taxes right now, and that they're not going to take them out. But the problem is that you're still, when you go to file next year, you'll still owe that money. So all that money that you've deferred, now you have to come up in a lump sum. And one of the reasons why they have this in the first place is because to come up with a lump sum, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. And if you have the money, you spend it. So there are some people that don't do that, but most people cannot, like, if they have that physical money, they spend it on the food that they need. And most people are living outside of their means as it is. So the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. It's a true fact. So it doesn't make any sense to defer something that they're not going to be able to pay later, because you can't recover overnight from something like this. Mm-hmm. 1 year from now, not working and making half of what you normally make for 6 months isn't going to all of a sudden change. Your situation isn't all going to all of a sudden change overnight, and you have the money to pay these taxes. So it just seems a little silly and a little not thought out.
It's like the water main on your street bursted, and you're like trying to put duct tape over it. Like, yeah. It's just it's.
But I understand the process, because the point of it is to make people think that they're there to save you and they're going to give you the money, but no one's going to see that money. Now,
to the White House's credit, Trump does seem to always be in favor of continuing these unemployment benefits. So it's like you can't even blame him for this. It's just so much of it comes down to Congress and they're just butting heads and nothing seems to be done. And it seems like it should be such a bipartisan issue. Like, people are struggling out there. I mean, this is what government is all about, right? Or should be, is helping the people. And I don't know why it's such a struggle to get anything passed. It just seems bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's very politicized, and it shouldn't be. It should be about people and what they need.
Any other takes? I didn't want to make this too long. I think we really just kind of wanted to, part of it was venting and frustration, but also dispelling, I think, some of the myths that are out there from two people that, like, we're right in the middle of this. Like, we work in the restaurant industry.
We're in one of the hot zones.
Yeah. Like, I wish I could just go back to normal work, but it's just, that's nowhere in sight. It's not going to happen overnight. We'll see what happens. Right now, the outside seating works because it's summer.
Oh, no, it doesn't, because the last week it's been over 110 and
incredibly hot.
It's been so hot that nobody wants to come. So, being outside has its benefits for the disease, but it doesn't always have the benefits for rain and seasonal issues. So
I just can't imagine. I mean, if you were a bartender in the place that's just the bar and doesn't serve food, like, you're still not open. I can't imagine. Because at this point,
right now being on, well, that's the same thing with our friends that are hairstylists. Like, they're living off of $450 right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Well, some of them are doing house calls, but it's like, and
they're not supposed to be doing house calls.
But we all know they are. I mean, you see any politicians that haven't gotten a haircut out there?
Nope, they all look pretty clean and shaved.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel lucky to have some sort of work, honestly. And there's so many people that their business is still not open,
or they weren't brought back after the pandemic.
If you qualified for the maximum of 450 in March, it's gonna, I should have crunched the numbers before we started this, but that's gonna run out before the end of the year, like your fund. Because I remember doing our own numbers on it, in the middle of the original quarantine. I was like, well, this doesn't last for the rest of the year. Like, I'm like waiting for them to reopen. Come on. But yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces, and I think it's just so much more complicated than people give it credit for on both sides. Like, we're yelling here at the politicians, but there's so much we don't know about either. And it's,
we can only speak to our own perception.
Yeah, like, we're complaining that, why are they opening up these businesses and not other businesses? And it's, I'm sure they have their reasons. I don't think the governor has anything against, salons and nail parlors. Like, I'm sure they're working off of the best knowledge they have, but it's just, I guess, part of my own perception and questioning it, because I never heard a good reason of why certain businesses get to open and others don't get to reopen.
I never heard the explanation.
I would love to see those numbers, because I'm honestly curious about it, but I remember looking it up a little while ago and I couldn't find anything on it. Just a lot going on. We hope you guys are all doing well out there. Got that 2020 vision. Remember that from January?
It's a good vision.
This is my favorite. People were so optimistic in January. 2020 vision. It's just been a hot mess of a year.
It's definitely been freeing in the sense of, like, you really reevaluate everything that's going on in your life. And
well, the silver lining of when our restaurant did get shut down and we were unemployed was we really sat down and took stock of
what was necessary and what wasn't.
Yeah, like cutting the fat off the monthly budget. And I mean, we noticed like 2 months in how much, because we used to go out, maybe once a week, but you don't even realize how much that adds up, and like how much money we were saving just cooking at home 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I've really nailed down like my financial game.
Yeah,
during
you definitely learned to cut
That's been the
fat.
silver lining.
Yeah.
I've honestly gotten so much better with money, so I guess that's the good part.
Yeah.
And I feel like my habits have changed. I mean, we'll see once, if 1-2 years from now everything goes back to normal, but I do feel like part of my core habits
I don't feel the need
totally
anymore.
Changed through this.
Yeah, I don't feel the need anymore to
I feel
buy
the
extra shirt.
I feel like I got to make maybe a 1% glimpse of what people felt like that left through the people that lived through the Great Depression and like people's grandparents, and they would be so frugal still in their 90s.
Oh yeah, my grandma was like ridiculous. Like, she would take the sugar packets from restaurants because then she didn't have to buy the sugar.
Like, not that we are in anything close to that yet here, but I feel like I just a glimpse of, oh yeah, like these events can totally just change your habits for the long term.
Oh yeah, my grandma used to like keep the Kleenex until it was completely used, because Kleenex was expensive. It wasn't something you could like throw away, after one use. So, those little habits that you noticed when you were younger that you thought were so weird, now they all kind of make sense.
It's definitely something I'm going to try to keep track of as the years go by. I'm like, okay, looking back on 2020, like, do I still have some of those habits that I've started now?
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't miss eating out all the time.
But you should eat out, and you should support the businesses and the restaurants.
I do miss it sometimes, but I don't. I felt like once a week I just had to get out of the house and like do it. It was like a necessity. I don't feel like it's a necessity anymore.
Well, we've learned to like be more creative with date night, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
Netflix we only recently
going back to
started...
your original point, your Netflix has been a kind of a savior in that
That's right, full circle. Well, we started getting old school. We actually got the Netflix DVD subscription.
It's a nice surprise in the mail.
Because it's like dirt cheap, and you don't have to. I don't have to wait for the movies to come on the streaming platform. I watch all the new movies I want. Yeah,
well, I think for me, it's I don't have to make the decision. Because, you know, we will sit there for like 30 minutes and like, what about this? Or no, how about this? Or no, I'm not in the mood for this tonight.
When you have this physical DVD lying around, it's like you have to watch it.
You have to watch it because then it prevents you from getting the next one.
For anyone who hasn't done this in a while, because I think there's a lot of people out there that have not touched a Blu-ray or DVD in some years now, like taking that DVD out, or I should say Blu-ray, taking the disc out and like popping it in there, and you turn on the TV. Like, it's like a whole weird, it like means so much more to watch the movie. It's like a whole weird ritual.
It's that, and for me the biggest thing is just that the decision is made. It's like, you know what you want to go see when you go into the movie theater. Yeah. You're not going to debate, you know, because you've seen the trailers, you already know, you know what I mean? So when that movie comes out, you're going to see it. And I feel like it's something like that. It's like, we've already picked our movies, and when it comes in the mail, you already know you want to see that one. Right. So you're just going to watch it.
To me, it was just, it was like more of it made the movie experience like more official. Like, like going to a movie theater. Like, okay, I got to actually insert this physical thing. It's like when you know, I think that's why vinyl took off, 10 years ago again, because I think this, having like an actual tangible media thing, like there's something to it.
Yeah.
It's underrated, I think.
I haven't seen CDs come back yet.
No.
So I don't know if that tangible thing applies to the records.
Vinyl was all but dead and then made this, still is, like this giant comeback.
Well, vinyl, it's just like a...
I know, but I'm just saying, I think at the core of that is that you have this physical thing that you're interacting with. No?
Yeah, and I think
part of it is
sound.
Vinyl. Some people swear by the sound of vinyl.
Yeah, I think there's a difference.
I think it's part of it is... taking something out of the sleeve, and you put the needle down on the vine, like the whole kind of ritual around. Yeah,
rituals are a thing that we're kind of missing these days.
Instead of me sitting on the couch scrolling through Netflix for 30 minutes, like, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch that. I got my drink and I got my popcorn. I'm gonna pop the disc in, and I don't know, something nice about it.
Agreed.
That's the closest thing we can get to going to the movie theater right now, I think.
Yes.
Which I don't think I will be doing anytime soon.
No.
There was just an article this morning where they were saying that's some medical expert. He's like, that's literally the last thing I would do right now is go into a movie theater.
Though I think that drive-through movies should come back in style, because I was always upset when it went out of style. And I think that was a great experience, which I have yet to partake in. But I think I will be.
They're doing more drive-in movie theater stuff around here in LA.
Yeah.
You can't even get the tickets.
No, that's the problem.
Like
it's like, because people want to get out of the house and are looking for something. Yeah. And it's something that's safe. Like, literally, they've sold out like months in advance. And it's like,
it doesn't even matter what there's. It's like like Bewitched.
Yeah, no, it's like old movies. It's not new movies. But I want to do it. Like, I almost want to buy one for like 3 weeks in advance.
Literally doesn't matter what they put on. It's just the fact that people can go somewhere.
It's an experience, something to get the kids out of the house. I don't know.
All right. So now that we've totally veered off course, I think it's time to wrap this up.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. And we will catch you guys on the next episode of Modern Life. Want to say bye, Stacy?
Bye.